Okay, I'm going to go through a quick revision guide for woven and non-woven fabrics. First of all, starting with woven fabrics. What you will see on your exam paper is possibly a picture like this in the right hand corner. The edges do not fray until they're cut, as they have a selvage. It is really important that you understand that this is made by either weaving or knitting yarn. Woven fabrics are made up of warp and weft, and the side of the fabric where the weft are double backed to form a non-fraying edge called the selvage. The fabric can stretch on the bias. Remember, the bias is going across. The first thing, as we looked at last week, plain weave is the simplest and tightest weave. What you'll notice here is under 1 over 1, under 1 over 1, under 1 over 1. The plain weave is great for things such as calico, taffeta, voile, muslin. All of these are fairly strong and fairly hard wearing, and they're fairly cheap to make. The fabric looks exactly the same on both sides. A twill weave is slightly more complicated. If you look over here, we're going under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2. Things such as denim, tartan, tweed, gabardine, all slightly stronger. Stronger for soft yarns such as wool and cotton. As they cross on the warp and the weft, they have a pattern that goes diagonally across, an effect that actually can be quite beautiful. A satin weave is created in a uniform way. If you look carefully here, under 1 over 3, under 1 over 3. This is things such as Duchess satin, crepe back satin. All of them have a very smooth, shiny surface, but the reverse tends to be dull and non-shiny. Knitted fabrics. Now, we've got two types here. We're going from right to left, so in which case it's obviously the weft. Weft knitted has long lengths of yarn looping together. Can be made by hand or by machine. If a stitch is dropped, then a ladder tends to form, and that generally creates a hole in the garment. The fabric is stretchy and comfortable, so jumpers are generally made from this kind of thing. Socks, t-shirts, all daily garments that we wear. The warp knitted fabric, however, goes up. Remember, the warp goes up and down. Slightly stretchy, won't really ladder, tends to be made by machines more so than people. And finally, is suitable for things like swimwear, underwear, geotextiles. The non-woven is made by bonding or felting. It's important that you understand the difference. Properties are, they're not very strong. They tend to pull apart. They can be made in a range of weights. They tend not to fray. Can be made and moulded into particular shapes. Fantastic for certain garments. They can be made to be soluble. They soften when heat, simply as they have some form of glue used in the hemming. It also can be weaker when wet, which can cause a bit of a problem as it's cheap to produce, but in the same instance it tends not to be as long lasting. Now, your two types being bonded or felted. Bonded, it can be dry laid. The web fibre is laid on a drum and hot air is injected into that to bond the fibres together. When it's wet laid, that's slightly different. Then a solvent is mixed that softens the fibres and releases a glue-like substance so that it bonds together and the web is laid down to dry. But direct spun is even more peculiar because in this case it's spun on a conveyor and glues are actually sprayed onto the fibre and then they're pressed to bond. Now, felting is a little bit different. Felting, wool felt, we've tried before in class, And it is important, it's a non-woven fabric and is produced with short fibres from wool or animal hair generally. It's an ideal fibre because it has these little hook-like scales. When moisture is applied to it, they interlock into each other. Then we've got the heat and damp conditions which cause the fibres to actually curl up. This will actually be the scales locking together prevent the fibres from straightening out again, which can be absolutely fantastic for some garments but not suitable for others. So these are your garments. For felting, we're talking about hats, jackets, coats and toys, and even a snooker table cover. For bonded fabrics, we tend to look more so towards medical masks, table linen, and things such as the interfacing that appears on the inside of clothing and is used by tailors and dressmakers.